All right, in this video we're going to talk about how to solve multi-step equations. So these could be anywhere from 2 steps, 3 steps, 4 steps. We want to keep all those basic ideas in mind that we talked about when we solved 1-step, 2-step, multi-step, distributing, variables on both sides, all of that sort of stuff. Please make sure you remember we want to simplify each side before we start solving. So we don't do any inverse operations, we don't do any undoing of anything until we've simplified each side. So let's take a look at this very carefully. On this one right here, this side is simplified. There's nothing that we can do there. And on the other side, there's an 11, so there's nothing we can do there. So in order to solve this one, we're going to isolate that variable term right there. So we're going to move the 5 by subtracting 5. These are going to cancel out to be a 0. So on this side, we have 2x plus 0, which is just 2x. And then we have an 11 minus 5, so that's a 6. And then we're going to get rid of the 2. This is multiplying by 2, remember. So we're going to divide both sides by 2, so we end up with x equals 3. So a regular old 2-step equation there. So let's take a look at this one. Again, this side is simplified. There are no like terms. There's no distributing or anything. That side's simplified. So what we want to isolate is this guy right here. We want to get rid of that subtracting 3 first, so we're going to add 3 to both sides. We get v over 5, and then negative 9 plus 3 is a negative 6. Again, that bar means division, so we want to undo dividing by multiplying. So we're going to multiply both sides by 5. Multiplying by 5 would cancel dividing by 5. We're canceling the numerator here with the denominator there. It's kind of like cross-canceling. So we get a v over here, and we get negative 30 on that side. We'll circle our answer, and we're all set. The next one's a little bit different. Remember, this is kind of that exception. This long fraction bar groups the two of those together. So we keep the 6 plus b together. What we do is we get rid of the dividing by 5. So we're going to multiply both sides by 5. Those are going to cancel. We end up with a 6 plus b over here, and then we have a negative 20 on that side. And then we're going to get rid of the 6, so we do that by subtracting 6. Now remember, the reason we subtract 6 is because the sign that's understood to be in front here, if it's not written, it's understood to be a positive. So this is a plus 6. We undo that by subtracting 6. So we end up with a b over here, and then negative 20 minus 6 is negative 26. We'll circle that answer. Now this one, remember, this side is simplified, that side is simplified, but we do have some like terms, but they're not on the same side. So remember the technique for solving variables on both sides. We usually want to move the smallest one. So if you had your choice between moving 4b and 1b, we'd want to move the 1b. So we're going to subtract b from this side and subtract b from this side. Those will cancel each other out and make a 0. That's going to leave us with just a negative 8 over there. And then 4b minus 1b, that's going to be 3b, and then plus 1 over here. And now you should recognize this. This is just a regular old 2-step equation. So we're going to go ahead and solve it like this. That isolates the 3b. Now we want to isolate the variable. So we end up with a b on this side and then a negative 3 on this side. So there's our answer on that one. Now, taking a look at the next one, number 5, it has a set of parentheses, so we definitely need to do some simplifying. And again, this is just a good reminder that we need to distribute, and then we make sure that we get both of those multiplied by the negative 4. So this is negative 4x. This would be plus 20 equals 16 over here. We want to isolate the variable term first, so we're going to keep the negative 4x together. We're going to subtract 20, so those will cancel. We get negative 4x over here, and 16 minus 20 is negative 4. So when we divide both sides by negative 4 to get rid of that multiplication, we get x equals 1 on this side. Okay, now again, variables on both sides. Let's move the smaller one. If I do that, I'm going to move the 5n. Again, you can't just put those together and add them up and get 13. It doesn't work that way. We can't combine them until they're on the same side. So when we do that, we end up with a negative 22 over here. 8n minus 5n is 3n, and then we've got the plus 2. I'm going to move that over just a little bit by subtracting 2. So that's going to be 3n equals negative 24, and then we'll finish off by dividing by 3 to get rid of that multiplication. So we get n equals, let's see, a negative divided by a positive is a negative, and 24 divided by 3 is 8. So we get a negative 8 on that one. Again, we've got some parentheses on this one here on number 7. So we'll distribute through. 6 equals, this would be negative 6x, and then a negative times a negative is a positive, remember. So that's going to be a 36. We'll isolate this variable term here. We'll get that all by itself by subtracting 36. So that's going to be negative 30 equals negative 6x. And then we're going to divide by negative 6 to get rid of multiplying by negative 6. Those are going to cancel. We get x on this side, and we get a 5 over there. Okay? And then this last one here, this one's kind of interesting. Looks a little weird. We've got 1s and 3s all over the place, but this is the variable term. Take a look at that right there. So we want to get rid of the 1. Again, we're going to get rid of that 1 by subtracting 1. It's understood to be a positive 1 right there. So this is a 12 equals negative 3x. We're going to get rid of that multiplication by dividing by 3. So we get a negative 4 on this side and we get an x on that side. We'll flip the page over. There's only 8 problems on that front side. Let's take a look at this one. Again, we want to keep in mind that this could be any type of equation here. So we want to make sure we know how to deal with this. Remember, long fraction bar keeps the two of those together. That horizontal bar is a grouping symbol. So we're going to get rid of dividing by negative 3 by multiplying both sides by negative 3. Again, notice the second one in parentheses. Those are going to cancel. That leaves me with v minus 5, and I get an 18 over here. And then we want to move the 5 to the other side. All we have to do is add 5, so we end up with 23 on this side. So we get v equals 23. So good shape there. Nothing to simplify on either side there, so we can just go ahead and solve. So I'm going to subtract 6. That's going to give me a negative 5a. And we get, let's see, same sign. So we're going to have to add those together. That's a negative 30. And then we're going to divide by the negative 5 to undo that multiplication. So we get a equals 6 on that one. Cruising right along. All right, let's take a look at this. Let's see, there's our variable term right there. Again, short fraction bar groups just those two together, top and bottom. We're going to subtract 1, x over 9 over here, and then we get a negative 5 on that side, and then we need to undo the division. So we're going to multiply both sides by 9. Those are going to cancel, so we get x equals negative 45 here. Again, look at the equation solving skills. Look at those inverse operations, how we undo adding by subtracting, we undo dividing by multiplying, and then we've always got those arithmetic skills floating around, basic arithmetic and also arithmetic with integers. So we've got to know that a negative times a positive is a negative, and 9 times 5 is 45. Got to pull that out really quickly. Okay, let's take a look at 12. Again, two-step equation right here, so I'm going to add 5 here and add 5 here. Those cancel, those cancel to be a 0, and then what's left on this side is a 3x. We don't freak out if there's a 0. We just kind of keep plodding along and make sure we're okay. Those are going to cancel. That's going to leave a 1x, or just an x on that side, and then 0 chopped up into 3 pieces, still just a 0. Okay? Slide down here and take a look. Distributing on this one. So negative 18 equals negative 8m minus 10. I'm going to move that over by adding 10. So when it comes to the other side, it becomes positive. So we've got a negative 8m, and then take a look at this. Negative 18 plus 10, different signs. We're going to find the difference. The difference is 8. The bigger one's negative, so we keep that sign right there. Then we're going to divide both sides by negative 8. We get m on this side. We get a 1 on that side, and there's our answer. And then we've got, okay, take a look at this. This one's kind of interesting. We've got a negative 2n and then a 6n, and they're already on the same side. So there's some simplification to do here. So let's combine the two of those together. That's going to be a 4n equals 8 on the other side. Haven't even touched the other side yet. And then we just divide both sides by 4, so we get n equals 2. So we'll go ahead and circle that. Slide down here, take a look and see what we've got left. We're going to distribute. So this is going to be a negative 4n minus 16. Again, don't forget that you've got to multiply both of those by the negative 2. And then we've got 12 plus 3n. We want to isolate the variable on one side, so that means we've got to get it on one side. You can't have a 4n over here and a 3n over there. Of the two, the smallest one would be this one, so we're going to add 4n here. Okay, so those are going to cancel. That's a negative 16. And then on this side, we have a 12. And we've got a 7n. We're going to move the 12 to the other side, and we'll do that by subtracting 12. So we get a 7n here, and then same sign. We're going to find the sum of those two. That's going to be 28, and it will be negative. And then we're just going to divide by 7 on both sides. So we get an n equals negative 4. Now, if you did switch those around and write n equals negative 4 that way, either way is fine. In fact, let me just put a dotted circle around that one right there. Either one's okay. Flipping sides back and forth is probably not a good idea. In the long run, that can cause some problems, so just be aware of that. And then on this right here, let's see, we're going to distribute. So this is negative 24 plus 4x. Then we get a 50, let's see, that's a 56. And then plus 24x. So we got some big numbers floating around here. So let's see what we get on this one. We've got a choice of moving the variables. Don't even look at the 56 or the negative 24. We want to look at the variables. Which one do we want to move? We want to move the 4x. We're going to do that by subtracting 4x. So we're going to get a negative 24 over here, a 56x right there, and then this is going to be a plus 20x. 24x minus 4x would be 20x. And then I've got to move that 56, and to do that we're going to have to subtract 56. So this is going to be all together, let's see, I've got to find the sum of those. So if you had to do 24 plus 56, we could do it off to the side. That's going to be a 10, so that's 80. So negative 80 and then 20x over here. And then we're going to divide both sides by 20. Those are going to cancel. So we end up with x equals negative 4. So just how it happens to work out that both of those are negative 4. Now I'm going to change the size of this right here so that we can see everything all at once. The last two questions are basically what were the two hardest equations on this worksheet for you to solve. So there are 16 equations on here. Which ones were the hardest? So pick two that you found the most difficult. Write those numbers down here, like if it was number 4 and say it was number 16, okay? Those might be what you need to work on. And was it that, had variables on both sides and distributing or something like that? So write down maybe what skill you need to work on. So is it knowing how to undo multiplication? Is it knowing that when we have something like this right here, that is multiplying by negative 4? Is it knowing which side you want to move the variable on? Is it simplifying first? What is it? Kind of identify what you need to work on there. Okay, we've got one last thing that we're going to do before you retake the test, and that's a practice test. So make sure you get all of this done, do a good job on it, ask questions if you've got them, and then get that practice test done.